something that is meta in order to conform and deal with what they have been picking outside of that. They are going to be first pick here as the Dragons. And that just opens up a whole can of worms. You don't want Heroine to have Tiamat. You don't want Heroine to have Yanis, although that one's been a little more acceptable lately. You don't want PBM to have anything, admittedly, but you really have to narrow down a lot of picks here if you're the Leviathans.
Given some of the more popular mid laners as of late, Raijin, Sol, Tiamat, Morgan Le Fay, I can definitely see the reasoning as to why that Giannis has fallen a little bit more to the wayside here, but Leviathans being in that second pick position, and the Jade Dragons, they look as though they're trying to leverage a solid frontline component for themselves early on as they take shots towards some of these more flexible picks and more of the burst damage as well. Gilgamesh, Raijin, those are going to be immediate knockouts here for the Jade Dragons. Wondering if Yamoja ends up joining the ranks there, unless it's the Jade Dragons intending to pick that for themselves.
That's a very powerful pick that could potentially come onto the side of the Dragons. It's also a little worrisome because if they do, I mean, at this point, you know, Odin now being banned, so Tiamat, Morgan Le Fay still available, as you had highlighted, Yamoja still available right now. And if the Dragons go for anything that's not Yamoja, if the Leviathans had let it through, that's a scary pick to let wrong you have as well. I think they don't want to hedge their bets, though, and hope they get the other pick. They're just going to ban it out and make sure the Dragons don't have it.
Very interesting to note, though, that it's going to be a Fafnir above all else here, Gore. Morgan, Tiamat, both up for grabs. Wouldn't expect the Leviathans to lock in both of those simultaneously.
We saw that once last week.
I was going to say, though, at least one. And it seems as though Morgan Le Fay is going to be the preference here for Shinto in the mid lane. Maybe I'm like setting myself up for disaster here by assuming that it's Morgan Le Fay in mid. I just can't really see Yorkor wanting to prioritize that anywhere else. The Osiris, on the other hand, a nice flexibility option here. Could be for jungle, could be for solo. Would never anticipate it for support, however. Definitely want to see Drongyu stick to a little bit more of that frontline emphasis.
And this is another pick that we were kind of surprised by. It goes 10th overall there in game number 1 of the Oni Warriors versus the Valkyries. Doesn't get picked up, or if I remember correctly, not even banned out in game 2. Ducky had just such a great game on this pick. We saw him, I think, as one of the top picks overall last week. And so Osiris going up in the top isn't surprising. Maybe the lack thereof this Osiris today has been a little bit, but he does show his face here, the man of the hour, Cucullin. So now all those talking points I mentioned about him make me feel better because he has actually showed up. 80% win rate here for FineOK on this pick. And they get the Tiamat. Look, this is a Tiamat 5th pick in this game. That is ridiculous to me, Taco.
Smart of the Jade Dragons, though, to prioritize an aggressive solo lane pick just in case that Osiris is intended for the solo lane. You don't want FineOK having to play on the back foot here automatically just because of the God matchups alone. But with the Cucullin, he can still look to be aggressive through that solo lane. He can still look for that rotational impact that I mentioned earlier that we've been seeing so much out of him as of late. And it's just wonderful CC setup in general. Knockups are, without a doubt, the best form of crowd control in Smite, and that's why it comes as no surprise, really, to see the Leviathans prioritizing 2 of them as well.
Yeah, getting another one here with the Erlong Shin. That turtle form, nice shell that you can get alongside that. But also the taunt power, and makes me think, I mean, I think we've seen this go both ways. We've seen Erlong Shin solo with Osiris jungle, and vice versa, Erlong Shin jungle with Osiris solo. But it feels... I want to say it feels like a hardcore Osiris, but honestly, Taco, I feel like it's a coin flip.
I think it would be better for the Osiris to be in that solo lane matchup as opposed to the Erlong Shen. Erlong could definitely struggle a little bit, I would imagine, up against the likes of that Cucullin. Not only that, but I feel as though Erlong having that taunt available because of the jungle pressure, that it would be a lot more beneficial for a Morgan Le Fay as opposed to just having that Lord of the Afterlife to rely on for that CC setup and initiation. I also think that Erlong's much better faring against a Fafnir in that jungle versus support matchup. It definitely at least poses an issue or enough of a threat against Mike on that Fafnir where he's not going to be able to just jump in recklessly.
Make sure he has to be cautious, right? He can't just necessarily jump in, like you said, recklessly, which I think is a wonderful term for it. The jungle is the target for the Leviathans. Cirquette and Mercury banned out there. Up on the other side, though, Terra and Rom getting banned out with no hunters picked up as of yet. Heimdall gets locked in here for Zapman. It has been a comfort pick. I don't know what it is now. I know a few weeks ago it was something like a 60% win rate for him. He's loved this pick over the last year and a half. And they're hovering Izanami on the other side, Taco. I mean, Heimdall, we've kind of gotten used to. He's just going to be hanging around. Izanami's been, like, flirting with the meta, but she's not actually in a committed relationship with the meta yet.
I think the primary hunter that we've been seeing rocking the Izanami, largely Cyclone Spin's the first one that comes to mind, and I think the main preference towards Iza is that she's one of the few remaining hunters right now that has a strong attack speed steroid to really utilize that bow build aspect. Not only that, but I think that Iza versus Heimdall in the 1v1 specifically could be a little bit problematic here, though.
It's going to be fun to watch. I mean, she brings a big silence to any fight she's in, which is going to be fun, both with semi-reliable getaways. I mean, Heimdall we've seen get caught out in the crystal. Same thing we've watched Izanami. You can look, that dash is going one direction. They are invisible, though, and that tends to help. Nike locked in for the final pick here for the Dragons, which is going to finalize that, probably going into the jungle here for Sam.
I would expect this to be a Nike jungle for Sam.
This year they drop back-to-back 3-game sets against top teams, and then they start to find some wins. Zapman's been looking good with this team, and the Jade Dragons have seemingly gotten their feet back under themselves. Big heat check for both sides.
Man, I can't wait for this game. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. And already the way that these two teams drafted coming in shows that they're coming in guns blazing. Because to trade Tiamat Morgan Le Fay is always something that's really interesting to watch. And clearly Shinto decides that he thinks Morgan's a little bit better. If you tuned into Content Day, then maybe you would have noticed that he said he thinks Morgan's a little bit better than Tiamat. And I wonder if the Jade Dragons knew this was coming and how this draft was going to play out and get him to come in and commit a little bit earlier. But I'm not sure that the Dragons really win that 2v2 super hard. Erlong is really, really good at that point in the game. And Nike, well, I'm not really sure what point of the game she's best at.
Pluck onto Panda Cat, burns the beads. Now Rongyu will get hammered by PBM. Some damage from Panda Cat finds its way in, but Zapman has continued to trade out with the Jade Dragons Hunter. Around the backside is Panatom here. Could be a pin. Have to look out for the next 150 seconds if you're Panda Cat on this Izanami. No beads, but some escapability. Likely a purple buff going over to the Leviathans.
With the Hunter's Cowl start, you're just not going to get enough sort of damage in order to really get in a good position. As Herwin now loses his beads as well, so that's 2 carries on the Jade Dragons that don't have CC immunity available.
I said purple buff, but instead it's red buff. Invaded PBM, takes it away. And so at least defends his red buff. Little guys, I think, went over to the Leviathans. But buff down there in the mid lane for the Jade Dragons. Maybe a chase here.
It's really only Panda Cat and Cyclone's been playing her.
And Artemis is officially the first god I've ever gotten a pentakill on. As of this last week,
I forgot to watch your pentakill, Dave.
I got a penta on Artemis. There's a gank happening to find. Okay, here, 9 turns blessing used by Pentatom. Big double knockup secures his escape. And Pentatom just wasting a little bit of time over here on the right side of the map.
Mature with Zap joining him on the roster.
Is that an early prediction from you, Ika?
No, sir. I'm not in the business of making predictions, Dave.
No, it's probably a smart business to stay out of here. Or where First Blood is coming from. I can't predict that at this point. Panatom has made some effort here, but he's fallen behind by 2 levels to Sanford Soccer on this Nike. So might come there, might come here in the mid lane. Rongyu jumped on Panatom in the back line, though. It's a big taunt and Sanford Soccer. He goes down first. Some peel from the Leviathans turns that one around, and First Blood to the Levies.
I like the idea there from the Dragons. Sam comes up and over, and he's trying to use his shield to push back Rongyu to keep that CC chain going. But Rongyu just gets into his ultimate a little bit too quickly, and then Sam doesn't have the time in order to deploy the shield afterwards. If that shield had gone off, Sam is likely going to be okay because Rongyu was in his ult, couldn't turn and sunder. Jungle, I think it's super fun, and when it gets ahead, it feels really strong. But junglers just aren't getting ahead these days. Look at the levels in this one.
Oh, it's going to be tough for Sam. Will leap away, but immediately followed by Yarkor. Axe connects, and Sam uses that ultimate, so that's now down as the Pyromancer pulled by the Leviathans. Hurrywind alone between Yarkor and Rongyu. Will the T-Mac get out? Oh, there's a stun on the other end, and Hurrywind still surviving on for a little bit longer. That's about time for Sanford Soccer to jump in. And this play has been turned around. Sanford Soccer on the board.
Man, I thought Hurry was just dead to rights, but Rongyu and Yarkor just didn't have
on the mind for the Jade Dragons jungler.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that's serrated, but with the mannequins as well, I mean, Nike, not thought of as auto attack based, but I don't think you need to get perfect value out of serrated edge to have it be a pretty good option for you. I still think I would prefer Titans if I were in Sam's shoes, because a big Blink ultimate, getting that extra pen from Titans, or using my Ren to poke with extra damage from Titans would feel pretty good, but just think of it as a 20% pen.
This is a big one here. 14 minutes in, Gold Fury pulled, taken very low by the Jade Dragons, but the Leviathans are close by, and the Leviathans steal it away, and now they try to retreat as the Jade Dragons push this advantage forward. Wrong you low. Safer Soccer doesn't get the knock-up onto Panatom, who had to use the beads. The roar doesn't connect either, but a blink on it might close the gap, and it sure does.
Finally, they get him a good hammer from Mike, set that one up, and Final K is able to clean it up. That's excellent secure. Not there because Shinto stole it away, but now they're going to chase him down.
There's a stun onto Shinto. The knock-up is there. Oh, a great fear from Shinto, but it appears to just buy him some time, and Hurrywin rounds the corner and knocks the final pin down. So the Leviathans lose 2, but they grab the Fury, and that's still enough aggro to keep this 2,000 gold lead in the Leviathans' corner.
That should be not too bad for the Leviathans, but the Dragons are going to come out on top. Even though the Leviathans ended up getting the Fury away, they lose 2 members that now can't farm for a period of time, or for Sam in order to try and get rid of it. Yeah, it is. So this makes some sense to me overall. With how the meta is for junglers, I was talking earlier about how they're less impactful than they used to be. I think this makes sense.
Hurrywin plucked back into the awaiting arms of the Leviathans. He'll use the Aegis and the beads to survive. Shinto's used the ultimate here. PBM tosses out the Sunder, connects onto Shinto as well. There's a transformation. Safer Soccer spreads out the slowing, and Hurrywin deals the Kona damage to put Shinto down for the second time this game. Wrong you will have to lurk in the waters here. Frenzy used on the other side of this fight as well, but it looks like the Dragons don't have the legs.
Not quite. Rongyu tanky enough with that Spirit Robe, but still, that's a great aggression from the Jade Dragons in the mid lane, because Shinto's relics were still down after he used them in mid a little bit earlier.
Man, a bit of a bait and switch from the Jade Dragons there. Hurrywin does have to use both actives, but he will gladly take that. Now 2-0-2 on the team at. The last Pyromancer went to the Leviathans. This one looking like comfortably for the Jade Dragons in this game to maybe have something to say about it. We're at the point in the game now, Aggro, where this gold lead is effectively, what, 500 or so. So maybe not something the Leviathans want to just give up for free, but the Jade Dragons started up. Coerce will make its way out in an AoE fashion for PBM. Frenzy is there as well, and the Leviathans have no chance to answer.
Good attempt there from Panatom. He blinked in, tossed the pin, but was just slightly too late. I was surprised that Mike popped the Frenzy, but it ended up being the difference maker and making sure that they got it. Wonder if they want to try and force this fight. I can't imagine they do with Mike's Frenzy on cooldown.
But the beads and Aegis for Hurrywin have come back up. You mentioned that's maybe around the time we'll see something happen for the Jade Dragons. Mike tossed out a stun. Wrong you used lurking in the waters. And so that's something now Wrong you has to be wary of. A pluck misses, and usually lurking in the waters is your get out of jail free card, but won't have that. And we're 20 minutes in. We've already seen how fast these teams can burn these objectives if you die around it. The other team's got a real easy look at the FG in the back line. Final case, found a knockup. Wrong you lives on though. Yarkor, he's got to turn tail off it to Mountain. 3-man top from Panatom, but he'll pay for it in blood. Jade Dragons, a quick 2 kills.
What an ultimate from Panda Cat. Who cares about securing Gold Fury, Dave? Let me get a 2-man right in the middle of the jungle, and the Jade Dragons are just stomping this fight.
Oh, it's under the tier 2 tower. We go. Hurrywin wants more. Safer Soccer and PBM do not, so it's immediately back to the FG. You'd assume for the Jade Dragons. PBM a little bit low, but everyone else feels pretty healthy, feels pretty topped off. Frenzy's going to come up right now. Could get popped if the Jade Dragons feel like they need it. But with only Zapman and Shinto on the map, no real chance, and it's going to be a 21-minute FG to the Jade Dragons.
And look, just a couple minutes ago it was, oh, I really like the pace of the Leviathans. You know, they're the ones forcing Pyromancer. They're the ones showing up and trying to take a little bit more buffs.
And from the Leviathans, we'll see how these waves crash in if there's a team fight to be had, because earlier on I said, you know, maybe the Leviathans can test. This gold lead isn't that bad. I mean, it's gotten that bad at this point, so you have to pick and choose where you fight. Wrong, you didn't get the opportunity. He gets stunned down, takes about half of his HP just for standing there. And it looks like, Aggro, the Leviathans are at least going to stick around and see if they can find something.
I think you're really seeing the issues whenever your jungler falls behind on an initiation jungler. That Wrong You has been left as the lone initiator for the Leviathans, and the Jade Dragons are taking what the Leviathans give them. We'll hit Wrong You every fight, but he's not tanky enough to withstand it, so we're just going to put him down to half HP every single time.
Tier 2 tower ends up going quietly. So now the rest of the Jade Dragons walk forward. Wrong, you had to go back to base here. Now it's Yarkor on the front line, being whittled down to half of his HP. There hasn't been that punchback in recent fights here from the Leviathans just yet, and the Jade Dragons have just felt oppressive in their ability to jump into these fights, whether it's Cullen, whether it's Sanford Soccer starting things off. I don't think that changes here around this Fury. Maybe a chance, though, for Panatom. You know, you don't have to get in their face because they're going to be getting in yours.
Still, it shouldn't be long with an Izanami with Frenzy before this Phoenix goes down, but there's only about a minute left on this FG. Jade Dragons can't wait forever.
And Sanford Soccer and Fine. Okay, they don't want to wait. Frenzy using the backline. Zapman luckily gets saved by a taunt from Panatom here, but look at the revive from the rest of the Jade Dragons. In they go, and Yarkor falls first. Wrong lurks in the waters, and that's enough to save his life. Phoenix still somewhat healthy here. Shinto finds a kill onto Panacat for at least one trade.
And Panda had relics too. That's huge. Shinto makes a big play. It won't save this left side Phoenix, I don't think, but maybe it will.
My goodness, the Leviathans have found Cleave, and it's all onto the Jade Dragons. Now Zapman works forward, finds the rest, and Fine OK falls as well. The Jade Dragons don't get the Phoenix, and they lose 3.
Yeah, it's not often that you start to say, hey, Panda's got to do better there, but Panda's got to do better there. Protections for all the gold in his inventory. Boone is going to keep him stocked, literally, in that department. So if there's a god that can make use of the Sentinel's boon, it's probably Fafnir.
I think there's a few gods that can make use of Spectral Armor. Mike, the third to pick up Spectral here, so Zapman is going to have a real tough time. Now, unless he's finding the, unless you're hitting the carries, you're hitting someone who's got Spectral. PBM transforms, Frenzy ready to go if the Jade Dragons want it. Leviathan's close by, so they're showing their presence around this FG pit, but it's half HP on the big objective. Hurrywin lets a volley of damage fly over. That'll force the Leviathans back for a moment. It's getting low here. Steal potential around the corner. Yarkor jumps in, but he does not steal it away. The Dragons confirm it. Pandacat, he's found the opening kill, but Shinto flooding into the backline has been able to transform one on over to the Leviathans, but it's a double from Pandacat. It's one from Hurrywin, and it's Shinto and Zap left alive.
And Fine OK blinks in, finds Shinto. Great Dragonflight in order to keep himself safe from this Cullen dive. That's still 4 members with the FG, and Sam dies, but he does his job perfectly in that engagement. Just keeps everyone at bay, focus on me, not on the Fire Giant, and instead of a pure coin flip, it's more like a weighted coin there for the Jade Dragons. It was risky, but favored for them, and that's why they're able to secure it.
Oh man, this is going to be difficult. It's Shinto with only Aegis, and Zapman with only Aegis for the next 15 seconds. Wrong, will be back from base. See how the Dragons respond after this Phoenix goes down. They're kind of trending backwards, so it looks like they just want mid and left, and they'll back away. So no end attempt yet from the Jade Dragons, but they are fully juiced up. Everyone but Sanford Soccer's got the Fire Giant.
It makes the carries that are going to be behind those tanks a lot more terrified, really is the right word, but they understand that they can't step up in order to help off a Sobek pluck. If you're in range to follow up off a Sobek pluck and they're all in committing onto the Sobek, they're in range to hit you right afterwards, because he's probably not going to live for very long. So that it makes sense to me why the Leviathan's backline are playing the way they are.
Well, Leviathans commit 2 to pick up the Draugr, but then have to go back to base by the time the Jade Dragons reach the right side Phoenix. Yeah, I don't know if Draugr buff did much there for the Atlantis Leviathans. Going to get taken down swiftly by the Jade Dragons. Here's the good news. Left side wave pushed out. Mid wave now reaching the Leviathans. Only 1 wave to immediately deal with. But you figure you got to take this fight somewhere away from your Titan, maybe, if you don't want that additional assistance from your base, because the Jade Dragons got a lot of damage.
Shouldn't take too long for that left wave to push up, because Sam's going to grab this one as it spawns, and you don't have a fire wave quite yet coming right. So you've got a minute left on this Fire Giant. This should just be used as time to poke and try and work your way in.
PBM jumps forward, disarms Shinto in the backline there. Wondering if we would see a pluck from Wrong to put PBM back into an uncomfortable spot. Left wave still inching their way forward. And so now it's, Panatom's got his blink here in more of a power position than he'd been earlier on in the game. Has the upgraded starter item there as well. We've seen some big taunts kind of slow down the initial engagements in a couple of these fights. Could be a good opportunity for this Erlang Shen to help put up a defense, but now these waves are crashing in. Feels like any moment now the Jade Dragons will press down the gas pedal, and it's PBM transforming that maybe starts off the final fight of the game. Lord of the Afterlife used from from Yarkor, excuse me. But the big knockup from the rest of the Leviathans. Hurrywin has turned around the damage onto Panatom. Shinto's found one as well. Zapman makes it all the way back to base, and the Jade Dragons don't look convincing just yet.
And Pandacat's dead. I don't know that they have the DPS at this point. They don't have someone to consistently put that damage in. The front line is healthy.
Oh, it's half HP on the Titan. Zapman gets saved for Soccer, and there is plenty of damage at the end of the day, and the Jade Dragons They'll get it done without their ADC.
That took place right before that main Fire Giant pool. It had been a relatively quiet match between these two teams, very farm-centric focus sort of debut from both sides, but as soon as that initial team fight went down, and then you just see the Jade Dragons, they get the first Fire Giant in the game, they start trying to make their siege, and all hell kind of breaks loose underneath the Leviathans. Phoenixes, Zetman and the team just not willing to let it go easily for the Jade Dragons, and for a second there, it became a little bit questionable as to whether or not we were going to see a Leviathan's comeback, but at the end of the day, Jade Dragons managed to find themselves with a victory in Game 1. However, Gore, the fashion in which they went about it, probably not one that's sitting too comfortable with them in their minds, and I'd imagine that the Jade Dragons are certainly going to look to try and smooth things out here for game number 2 if they want to close the series out.
Yeah, a lot of good control through them, but like you said, there were a couple of key moments. Honestly, even that Fire Giant was just barely in their control. Of course, you ask them, I'm sure they'd say that they had some control on it. Hurry's at 5-0-6.
Never had a doubt.
Yeah, never a doubt. It was calculated. 27,000 damage there for the Tiamat. Looked really, really good. Just a couple thousand damage.
I don't know, Gore. It's crazy to me that Hurry keeps getting Tiamat.
I know he has to be wearing shorts, but it just looked like Sam is preparing to give birth to another win here, right? Like the legs up in stirrups. Like that's the only mental image that came to my mind. I'm sorry, chat. You gotta live with it now too.
I thought it was his hand.
Oh, that was his hand?
Just
No,
like
I saw him lean
the
back.
knuckles in the cam, like if he's got his hand like placed forward, I don't know. Yours is definitely a little bit more
graphic.
That's one way to put it, but I think the focus can be brought back in to these picks and bans so far. Leviathans have a pretty big decision to make here, Gore, because as far as the Jade Dragons are concerned, I think they'll trade out Morgan Le Fay for Tiamat every single day of the week.
Yeah, they'd happily do so. So do you ban Tiamat? In which case, they could ban out Morgan Le Fay and force you into a different first pick. But with some of these other available picks, I think Odin was banned out by the Dragons last time around, so maybe changing a little bit. Gilgamesh still on the board for these players as well. And that's just a few of the top picks, not even mentioning your Osiris's, your Ymirs, your Fafnirs that we just saw.
The Terras.
Now a lot that is going to be wide open. And Terra ended up getting banned 4th by the Dragons last time. It's the Odin here from the Leviathans, not wanting to first pick it, not wanting the Dragons to have it. And so it's going to stay true. Now the Dragons get to decide the fate of everything.
And the Jade Dragons, they get 2 picks though, Gore, in response to whatever one the Leviathans opt for. And again, you listed off a lot of really strong candidates as far as first picks are concerned, but I'm honestly more intrigued to see what the response will be from the Jade Dragons, because I do think that there would be some prioritization placed towards that Terra. Almost curious to see if the Leviathans might even opt to lock in a frontliner before worrying about their mage mid lane, and it seems as though Gilgamesh is the primary target here for the Leviathans.
Now, I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was Bolts versus Warriors, where, Aggro had said, like, well, Morgan Le Fay, Tiamat are available. This is where you pick something that you prioritize higher. The Bolts lock in the Osiris. And it's like, that they're only going to pick one. This is the opportunity for the Dragons to do the exact same thing, where they just say, no, we'll grab both Tiamat and Morgan Le Fay. But, we didn't look. Tiamat solo didn't look too hot then, even though I know Fine OK has a lot of capabilities. Morgan
on the other hand. No, honestly, okay, I'm toying with the idea of it. I wouldn't hate it by any means. I think that Fine OK is certainly capable of piloting that god.
How brave are you, Fine OK?
But on the other hand, Fafnir, Morgan Le Fay actually going to be the target. And I think the primary reason for this guy, I know I just spent a lot of time gassing up the Tiamat and Hurrywin's gameplay specifically with it, but Morgan Le Fay, the fear and the knock-up, I think, are excellent utility for shutting down a Gilgamesh, and that, I feel, is the primary reason why we see this Morgan being prioritized over the Tiamat.
Oh, and as you had said, and as Aggro had said, they like Morgan more if they're the Leviathans, so the fact that they have to go to Tiamat, even though it is maybe objectively something that is stronger, it's one of those question marks of like, well, do you actually play it at the same level? Shinto's a great mid laner, so there's no reason to cast doubt over that, but how well this Tiamat fits into the Leviathans compared to the Morgan could change a lot.
And this is a personal research moment for me as well, Gore, because the Leviathans win this game and bring us to a Game 3 in this set, I'm going to chalk it up to the Tiamat diff. I'm just throwing that out there right now. You can quote me on it later. I'm not saying that it's in the script for today. You know, I don't actually get access to Papa Hindu's notebook.
He keeps
but
that on lock.
the Morgan Le Fay Tiamat discussion, it's going to be a pretty big focus point here for both of these teams, and that Kakolan being locked in as well for the Leviathans does kind of put the Jade Dragons on the spot. Bologna, I don't think it's necessarily guaranteed as a solo lane pick here. With the way that Sam likes to have a little bit more of an unconventional god pool, I think that there is a possibility for this Bologna to be in the jungle. However, I would definitely lean towards it in solo for Fino.
And it's something that, again, we've been seeing a lot more often. It's odd to me, actually, to see it in the top 3. Not necessarily because I think Bologna's bad, but it's just kind of curious as to what their plan is, and I guess for their counter picks at this point. Because like you said, could technically be in the jungle, probably not going to be in the jungle, but this gives some flex to Sam and to Panda Cat.
I think the main highlight here for Bologna is that Eagles rally, because Winds of Shamash, it provides giant circle AoE of crowd control to a certain extent, but Bologna is going to be able to, I think, cut away at some of that pressure that the Winds of Shamash would have originally been able to provide, because you get all the protections inside of the Eagles rally, and that's not the only stim that you're applying to the team. A lot of team fight counter initiation being brought to the table here by one simple god pick out of the Jade Dragons. And not only that, but the Fafnir as well, I think, can definitely benefit with that Draconic form. Coerce, I think, has a really strong application into the Bologna here in case Jade Dragons want to utilize a more aggressive build.
Well, the bans came through. Taro, you had highlighted it. Terra, I should be very specific. Not Taro. It's not. She's not reading their future. Although she could, if their future is a loss. That's what the Dragons would want. Banned out alongside the Sobek. Mercury, Erlong Shin banned out there from the Leviathans. Thanatos gets locked in here for Sam. And finally, I was kind of wondering if we were going to see it, but Ymir finally makes its way onto somebody's draft. The Leviathans lock that in. But this Thanatos, look, and the Bologna to an extent, like that feels very Dragons-centric.
A lot of very strong god picks, though, for both of these teams. And not only that, Gore, but a few staple picks for both sides. I think that this Thanatos is definitely one of the more signature Sam for Soccer picks, but does introduce that factor of feast or famine. And even when we've seen Sam kind of struggling through on the Thanatos, inting off cooldown, doesn't really... honestly, I think it kind of motivates the rest of the Jade Dragons to play better even to a certain extent, because the times where Sam has turbo inted on the Thanatos, the Jade Dragons have had excellent...
What I'm saying is, maybe this is reflecting poorly on me, but like, I don't think, for example, my wife would want to go legitimately toe-to-toe with me.
I don't think anyone wants to go
Now
toe-to-toe.
it sounds like I'm fighting my wife. And I don't want it to sound like that. Unlucky. Oh, well. Sometimes it's how it be.
Sometimes, well, Myth was telling me I gotta let you talk more.
yeah, maybe he was doing more harm than good there, huh?
Yeah, I'll let you go there. Look,
No thanks.
My eyes have to go towards Sam for Soccer on the triple-double machine, and it's the Thanatos here. Matt there in game 1 for good reason. Everyone had a fantastic game. And so now it's time for Shinto to step up with what looks like it could be a Warlock staff early on in the build.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting choice for him. I mean, one way to counteract Thanatos, building defense doesn't do it because of all his pen, so go with something different.
Uh-oh, Sam for Soccer, all the damage, it's huge! And the first kill, the triple-doubles online, and the Jade Dragons swing for first blood. Unbelievable. That jump in is ridiculous, and Shinto had
support that I didn't mention. They are also in that.
They're all in that same tier.
They're all in that same tier. Yeah.
They're all my favorite support. So
okay,
just have one.
That's a big tier. But
yeah,
okay.
we got one big awesome Jake's tiers in that tier. I don't know why. That was a horrible one. I'm sorry, Aggro. I'll let you go on here.
I don't want to.
No, all right, I'll keep going on. Blue buff dropped on down here, but Yarkor and Final K brawling out Roar from Yarkor's Final K will jump on away. So Ultimates exchanged over here on this Thanatos and Gilgamesh respectively to start to get this ball rolling a little bit. Remember, Panatom fell a little bit behind early on. Now Sam for Soccer jumps on him, but there's no stun, but it doesn't matter. That axe does a whole lot of damage at the site before anyone tries to correct me, and Sam picks up his second.
Yeah, no one say anything to Dave and I, okay?
No one Joys are the best candy bar.
Was that Mifflin just a moment?
It was.
Yeah.
Someone could say something that psychotic to other human beings in their workplace and think that that's okay.
And then people wonder why our mentals are shattered. Wondering how Almond Joy is the best candy bar. There is pressure being put onto this blue buff by the Jade Dragons. Wall early from Wrong You here. This is a 4-man rotation from the Dragons and from the Leviathans. 4-man answer there as well. Only the Hunters left alone on the left side of the map. They're going to be seeing something popping up in the kill feed, you'd assume. It's Panatom trying to get
Nice
started
blink.
on the back. Blink from Sam. Avoids a little bit, but the knock-up on the backside is going to re-engage the fight. Yarkor in execute threshold. Blinks away already. Does Sam go for it? The answer's no.
Whew, no kills on the kill threshold, but somehow, I mean,
A little bit more active in the fight, if there is a fight around the Gold Fury. There's shred potential, really, with both hunters here at this point. Interesting steal potential, I think, from both hunters in this game as well. Panda Cat a little bit more immediate, drops the big circle of damage, but you kind of got to be there, whereas Zapman has the ability from a range to kind of steal things away. And so the hunters, I think, yet again, maybe at the forefront of objective secure in what ended up being a pretty pivotal aspect of the game there in Game 1. Silence onto Zapman, immediately followed up with a leap from PBM.
Nice.
But Sam for soccer, I didn't see him coming, and neither did the Leviathans. It's a double stun underneath the Tier 1 tower. Snipes used by Zapman. Wrong, you still taking some damage.
How do they
in
both
a
live?
2v4. The Leviathans will live, might lose their tower here. Oh no, Zapman is stuck around. And it's a killing spree for Sanford Soccer. Watch out though for Panatom around the back.
Blinks in, good ultimate right onto Panda Cat, but that stun didn't quite connect. Panatom still finds Heroin.
And it's Shinto who helps out there with the last bit of damage. Shinto running back towards the mid lane here. Sanford Soccer's got a lot of damage. A gets used. Not sure if the snipe connected anyway, but A gets used, and that's the important thing there, and that's down 175 seconds. So, could have been cleaner maybe their aggro from both sides.
I mean, still 1-for-1 overall, right? It's not a huge deal on either side. You get a lot of relics from as a backliner. You just don't have the space in order to do so. If you're not in Blink Eagle's rally range, you're not in the fight. So that's hard to avoid. Doesn't and of course the Thanatos ultimate on top of that.
So this is the Jade Dragons who know this is going on, saying, okay, you're going to take the Gold Fury Leviathans, we're going to take the Pyromancer on the other side of the map. If there is an objective trade early on in the game, that's often what you see is one will just take one, the other will take the other. And so not much changes in that last little bit of an exchange here. And forward goes York. Look at the damage on the Hurrywin. Panatom in there trying to chase him on back, and he does so successfully. Panatom picks up the second kill of the game for the Leviathans on a well-executed tower dive.
Really nice wall, and all of a sudden,
Whoa.
Hurry is 3 levels down to this Tiamat. So not in a great position anymore on this Morgan Le Fay.
So Panda Cat used his ultimate here and then followed up with some damage onto Zapman. So Zap is going to have to go back to base.
They might have sent someone to check either way. Surprised the Leviathans aren't being aggressive now. I know they don't have Panatom's ultimate, and he's really been their fight starter so far, but Sam doesn't have beads or ult. Mike doesn't have ult. This should be a good fight for the Leviathans.
The Leviathans are going to start bringing the game to the Jade Dragons. The Oni Fury gets taken down beneath half HP. It's a blink in from Yarkor and a 3-man knockup to boot. Panatom is in there on the follow-up as well. In the backline, Final K wailing away, but Yarkor is traded out one. Panda's got a double. The Izanami starting to swing. Shinto has made that Tiamat damage stick. Wrong you into the Shard's Bites, avoids the stun. Oh, and a great wall as he fades away as well. Should be another, and Shinto's got the double.
And that's why you force the fight around the Oni Fury, because your Tiamat is too big to handle. Level 20 now for Shinto, and he might be able to kill Panda Cat.
Why not? Why not, right? With the way that this game is going, Shinto walking into the last 2 members of the Jade Dragons, and instead it's just going to be Jungle Farm taken away. The Fury never ended up being secured there, so that's something that Zapman and co can likely just rotate back to here and secure for themselves as well. So great news for the Leviathans is that this Tiamat and the lead that was built up ended up sticking. The good news then for the Dragons is that it's all catch up from here as far as XP goes, and Hurrywin able to close up that level 2 gap, but then there's a big gold lead net worth wise that you have to worry about. You got about 2,000 extra gold.
Still was able to 1v2 this Shinto Zapman backline, and they aren't getting that much stronger from here. They were pretty close to full build going into that fight. Whereas the Jade Dragons backline with where Hurwind is in his build is going to get significantly stronger from where they are. And the Dragons still almost won that fight. So I think this is the right call from the Leviathans. I don't think they should come out of that fight feeling like, oh, it's fine. We're just going to destroy them in every single team fight from here on out. I would come out of that fight going, all right, we got to keep the pace high. You get to farm by not doing anything if you're the Leviathans, because you're going to get this passive, this gold and experience boost from getting these towers on the left-hand side, whereas the Dragons can't farm by being over here all grouped up.
Yep.
This is the right call from them.
Sanford Soccer at 3-1-2 has slowed down a little bit since the early game killing spree, as the rest of the Jade Dragons have, to be fair to Sam. Ended up picking up Titan's Bane. I know you you were hoping that would find its way into his build, and in there it is. Final K blinks forward here. Panatom has to leap away, but Eagle's rally is going to force out the beads. It looks like that's all Final K came for.
And that's fine, but he's got to be worried about this wall coming in. Hammer off the mark there on the wrong Q. So that's a good trade, because Eagles rally a very low cooldown, even without a whole lot of CDR in the build there for Final K. But this is still the Leviathans grouping up and forcing the Jade Dragons to do something about this wave on the left-hand side. Yep. It's nearly gotten that tier 2.
Yep, tier 1 fell. Tier 2 close to it. Yarkor finds his way into the back, but look at the damage he's taking in Sanford Soccer with the easiest kill secure of his life. Yarkor missing from this fight now, and the Leviathans don't want to fight without their solo.
Sam still has ultimate, still has blink, could keep this fight going if he so chooses. But no frenzy anymore for Polar Bear Mike, no relics for this Izanami. If I'm the Leviathans, I am not backing down from this engagement. They are still looking good in the relic department.
So Rangyu now with his ultimate and his wall is going to try to change things up here. Fire Giant was taken down to half. Hovering Death from Sanford Soccer. He's alone right now, and so he'll dunk back with the rest of his team. The left side wave has been dealt with the old-fashioned way. Just let the towers deal with it.
Buckle in. So I don't know, man. I mean, it doesn't matter because the other team's going to be there to stop him. Without crit in the meta, it just takes so long on these Fire Giant fights, and teams know that. They know they don't actually have to respect a team that pulls it right away. My goodness, that was a big chunk on the final. Okay, that was the Soul Gem proc coming from Shinzo, who has finished off his Rod of Tahuti.
Hey,
oh my god!
On the PBM as well, and Zapman's got the last bit of damage, and suddenly this game has come alive just a bit. Yarkor blinked forward, everyone out of range, so he could not find the knockup for the re-engage in the Jade Dragons. So that flips things around here, because PBM gone, that means no frenzy, no coerce. So the Jade Dragons not only can't really start up the FG on their own, Aggro, I'm not sure they can defend it, because there's also Tiamat minions pushing down the left.
Oh, here comes Erwind and walks in directly into the damage coming from the Leviathans until Zapman puts him down with the snipes.
Watch out for the hovering death from Sanford Soccer. Could change things around. He's got a kill on a Panatom in the back, but 2 members of the Jade Dragons have died. Nearly got a kill on the Zapman as well. But Sanford Soccer walking over wards. We'll try to leave, but you're backing on a ward, my friend, and he learns that the hard way. There's the root, there's the damage, there's the double. And then Shinto's on a rampage.
Yeah, probably should have just ran out there for Sam. Definitely a bit of a greedy attempt to get the back off, but like his decision to not use beads, because he's dead there no matter what. That might have been the fastest I've ever seen a support die in 28 minutes of the game. I mean, that was absolutely insane how fast Mike died. Didn't get a chance to use his ultimate, didn't get a chance to use his jump. And as soon as that happened, the Leviathans did not hesitate and found themselves a really nice window.
You're allowed to think whatever you think on this.
I gotta sow some intrigue into the build, right?
I suppose.
No, there's aspects of casting where you can sow intrigue.
Yes.
But Sentinel's Boon against Enhanced Fire Giant, I don't
not
think
one of them.
No, it's not one of those spaces. So left side wave. Left side Phoenix was open, and that's where the Leviathans will go.
For what it's worth, Panatom not having the Enhanced Fire Giant actually very important, because this 2v2 would be really lethal for the Leviathans, for the Phoenix in particular. They would put a lot of pressure on the bird. If Panatom had that EFG, without it, it's still threatening, but it's not nearly as scary as it could have been.
The Jade Dragons are at least fully stocked on their Phoenixes, and they're going to do their best to keep them all alive. It's a regrouping underneath the mid lane. That means Zapman and Rongi are going to do damage over here on the left. PBM is going to make it good old 2v2. We've returned to laning. It's a silence onto Rongi, but no big follow-up, and a quick breeze, maybe a sneeze onto this left Phoenix is going to get the last bit of damage. So the Jade Dragons really have to consider how heavy they're willing to defend this one, because in the meantime, the mid lane Phoenix has also taken some damage.
I think I would just give this if I'm the Dragons.
You
can't body block the raw autos, no point. I'm surprised they still have 3 members over on that side of the map, because now you have to come into me while I'm in that transformation. No, he actually has a D-transform earlier than I thought.
Sentinel's Boon, baby! PBM stands strong now. It's Frenzy that gets used. And the Leviathans just back away while the Frenzy does its thing here for the Jade Dragons. They thought the dive was coming.
And it's because Rongu had popped that heavenly agility in order to positions like this, trade Oni Fury for fire, because they think Oni is that important. I don't think the Jade Dragons can afford to do that. because they aren't strong enough on their Phoenix defense. I don't like their tools very much there.
They're doing their best to push this left side wave up as far as it can possibly go. And look at the response from the Leviathans. A couple members head on back to base.
Interesting.
Jade Dragons considering a siege.
Gotta
but the
do
moment
it.
that the Leviathans show up, looks like they're playing a bit hesitant. Yeah, good to point out there, Aggro. A few Tiamat minions making their way down the right. PBM drop kicked by Panatom and then frozen by Rongyu, and the freeze will stick. Somebody's got to go back at some point here. The Leviathans might be able to delay these backs and let those minions do some work.
Fine, okay, and Yarkor just boxing it out, and Yarkor is winning this fight pretty handily. The Leviathans just trying to keep the Jade Dragons on the line until those minions work their way into the right side Phoenix.
And they're there. Fine, okay, has to use his ultimate, and the chase is on. The Leviathans looking for Mike. Mike has to use the leap, and Fine, okay, has to use the blink. And now the Leviathans will use the sprint to try to close this gap a little bit further. That minions being dealt with, so less pressure now. PBM uses the transform, immediately frozen in place, and Zapman's on the killing spree.
I just think the Jade Dragons, if you want to commit to that play, I don't mind it. I don't mind them saying, hey, we've just got more objective DPS than you. We're just going to Fafnir transform on your left side Phoenix, and we're just going to do it. Then sitting around and waiting until this next fight starts. But then they kind of they lose their appetite a bit. They realize that it's a little bit too risky, and at that point, Leviathans kind of had them where they wanted them. I mean, now you're in a position where you could have potentially stepped up 5v4, but is that better odds than 5v5 underneath your Phoenixes?
Great, really either way right now for the Jade Dragons. Feel horrible that the Enhanced Fire Giant is back. Draugr buff is on our Phoenixes. That'll buy us a half second or two once the Leviathans
like
actually
one
make
auto.
right, an auto attack or two. Left side Phoenix is respawn for the Jade Dragon, so it's Oni minions that are going to have to be worried about, but at least it's not Oni fire minions on the end of that Fury. So, bought enough time with the sort of pseudo push to allow the Phoenix to respawn by the time that the Oni Fury got taken down here. Good wall from Rongyu, kind of keeps Fine okay just in place there. It's a drop kick from Panatom, but look at the damage Panicat has taken. Look at the damage the Phoenix has taken.
Gone already. That one auto, they had to go back in for it at the very least.
That's right.
And no one has answered these Oni waves in mid or in left. How does the defense get better here from the Jade Dragons? I don't really see it.
It's up to the Dragons now to keep this game alive. And the Jade Dragons are pushing it on to a game 3. Panatom has played this front line well. Look at the damage Shinto is doing, tearing through Fine. Okay, Pandacat is low yet again. Winds of Shamash will separate out this fight. Now the Leviathans work for it. It's a nice stun from Sam for Soccer. But what else is there? There's Yarkor chasing you down, opening up the fighting with a big kill.
Ronghu's low, but not as low as Fine.
No.
Okay, what a wall, and Shinto gonna Goomba stomp him down.
Pandacat, he's got to do the damage here. Hurrywind has the opportunity to do so as well. Zapman is low. A lot of the physical damage out on the back line of this fight. So the Jade Dragons have a second to breathe. They're without 2 of their members for at least 45 seconds.
And that left side Phoenix already fell to just the Oni wave. So now you just have to let Zapman lifesteal. Let your Fire Giant sustain you. You got it for 2 minutes. You're obviously not going to wait that long because you want to use these respawn timers to your advantage, but great position for the Leviathans.
Pandacat's got Aegis, does not have ultimate. Now the Leviathans walk forward and look at the damage onto the Titan. The Dragons won't get a chance, and on to a game 3 we go.
Hey man, I don't know. Morgan Le Fay got behind in that game. I get it. You know, Tiamat, do we have to? This is so close, you know? Like, no one...
This is toe-to-toe.
You know what's interesting, though?
It looked horrible.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did.
There
You know what's
just
interesting?
doesn't really seem to be a weak point in terms of building a composition around this god, and it's just posing so many issues for both Leviathans and Dragons. Just whoever has her seems to have the leverage here.
And with a front line like the rest of the Leviathans, I mean, you've got a Gilgamesh, Ymir, and a Kukulkan setting up kills for you. Although right there, it was kind of Shinto versus the world. Rongyu had a little bit of a hand in it. But again, like, Zap wasn't really under too much pressure. Same thing for the Tiamat. In fact, if anything, it was tons of setup going against them, making things a lot easier for the Leviathans. Granted, it was not an easy game. They did manage to maintain control for a lot of it. The TM minions is what I'm going to start calling them. Were moving around the left-hand lane for a long time, making sure that the Dragons were preoccupied around those Fire Giants. But for the most part, they just played really well the whole time. I mean, there's not much more to say about the Leviathans there.
Well, I think that some of the breakdown that we can make for this Dragons composition, though, is that it just seemed as though they had an issue in terms of that initiation factor in general. It
Yeah.
just didn't really seem as though they were really able to generate enough aggression to fully collapse onto that back line there. And that's
Here for game number 3, which if Tiamat's left open means that they could willfully not pick it until third like they did in game number 1, or scoop it up immediately and make the Leviathans make some awkward choices. Of course, that's assuming she can even make it to that point, which we're kind of hoping she doesn't.
Well, I think that it actually works into the Dragons' favor here, Gore, because I think that puts most of the pressure onto the Leviathans, if anything, to ban that pick away. But also potentially with a lot of the God pick selections that we've been seeing getting let through time and time again here, I think Gilgamesh starts to become a little bit more of a focal point. Even the Fafnir and the Emirs, we see these aggressive supports time and time again for both of these teams. And I think that there is definitely something to note on Vrangi's performance with that Emir. I do feel as though the cutoff impact was just kind of devastating against the Jade Dragons there. It seems as though the team, at least, if they're going to opt for these high execution compositions, rely on them cleaning up the fights before they have to worry about an escape factor, well, you probably don't want to be having to deal with an Emir in the process of all that, because that's what
True.
Emir does best. He just controls the space in which you operate.
We'll have to see. They're making that decision now. And so far, 4 of these bans are the exact same as they had in game number 1. It was the Fenrir right there instead of the Umoja, but then Umoja was the next ban for them. So the Leviathans are trying to narrow down a little bit more of that window. The Dragons trying to figure out what game they're trying to play. This is where it gets interesting to me, because when it's the last couple of bans like this and there's so many powerful gods available, Taco, this one feels like it's 4D chess. You know that you are first pick, you know what's going to be available for you, but you also know, like you have highlighted and we've said before, they're going to get 2 of whatever's left, so you have to be very careful. And they opt into the Osiris as their ban, so the Dragons getting rid of the Gilgamesh Osiris Raijin here. A couple of target picks, but the Osiris maybe a little more out of left field. Tiamat, that one, it just belongs there.
The entire time my brain is just maybe, but it turns out that I think reason triumphs overall, and Tiamat won't get a chance to see her in game number 3, but now that makes Morgan Le Fay, I think, one of the next best options, but not necessarily the best first pick potential here for the Jade Dragons. Wouldn't be surprised to maybe see them prioritize elsewhere, but no, it seems as though they feel content to run it back on the Morgan Le Fay, knowing that the Leviathans won't have that response of the Tiamat in tow, but that means that the Leviathans very likely can look towards some of that frontline impact that we were talking about earlier, whether it be the Fafnir, whether it be the Emir, possibly even elsewhere.
Now, if I remember correctly, the first Morgan Le Fay game that we got, it was the Kings that had dealt with it. We'll see if the Leviathans learned anything from that, because it was that conversation of like, well, she doesn't handle like crazy dive too well, and the Kings, or no, I'm sorry, it was the Leviathans actually at the time versus the Kings, who just heavily dove her. It wasn't the Odin, it was, what, I think Fafnir. I know they had a Baba Yaga to Kakula in that game, and so we'll see what they do this time around. The Odin banned out, I believe, both games so far, banned by the Leviathans. Last game, Dragons' first game. And they're going to first pick it here. How does he have a particularly good, I guess with no leap, he's pretty solid at locking Morgan Le Fay down, at least for a little bit.
Morgan can definitely struggle against Odin's lockdown potential, but that's only if the Leviathans actually take decent follow-up gods for that Odin cage, because you can have a strong pick in the Odin alone. Sure, he might do fantastic in the laning phase, but as far as transitioning that laning phase pressure to the team fight, that's definitely going to come down to the overall draft as a whole. And I think that for the Leviathans, right now, it's all about solidifying the front line. Lots of control and lockdown, that's for sure. Great separation tactics that they can utilize to their advantage here. And Ball being back in the Jade Dragons court, might want to start looking to prioritize strong counter initiation points, because Odin and Emir, I think that's all the setup that you could possibly want in terms of being proactive on the map.
Well, Zizanami's been there all 3 games for them, and it was good, then okay, then now we'll have to, I guess, wait and see how it will fare in game number 3. But with the Odin, the Emir on the other side, it's definitely deadly. A Fafnir locked in alongside that, so a very classic and, again, game 1 duo lane for the Dragons.
Yeah, I was expecting the Fafnir and Emir to be the emphasis for both of these teams. Both teams love those aggressive support style of play, but of course that's going to put, I think, the pressure back onto the Leviathans again to make sure that they solidify a strong dual lane part for the Emir. And I think Rom has cleared that can certainly match that of the Izanami thanks to those astral arrows. Have to remember the bonus power as well. Very threatening, at least for the start of the game. But the Fafnir has the coerce, boost up the Izanami. That's always a really nice look for the Jade Dragons. I think that as far as the 4th and 5th bans are concerned, Leviathans, they're already taking note. Don't want to have to deal with the Fenrir. So much flexibility, I think, with that pick between solo and jungle still. That's one of the primary reasons why it just seems a little bit more threatening. But it does appear as though the Leviathans want to force Fine into an uncomfortable position here. Granted, the King Arthur is still up for grabs. He's not exactly a warrior that we see all that often anymore at the pro level, but I do think that he still has some viability here in terms of control that could be well utilized by the Dragons.
You had mentioned it. So Fenrir, Cucullin gets sat down by the Leviathans, Erlong Shin, and Serket on the other side. With that Rom picked up, Zapman obviously must have liked it from game number 2 because he went back to it. But now it's the question of Panatom or Shinto. They're going to answer with Shinto. Baba Yaga, who, again, kind of blew up, boots disappear. Everyone's like, all right, we're going to run her. And then I think it was like last week, she just slowly started being played less. Maybe Benevolence had a hand in that. But now she's still going to come back and do damage.
I think the main thing to keep in mind for that conversation, Gore, you should check it out yourself as well. See how many times Morgan Le Fay and Tiamat were left open.
Oh, yeah, you've got a good
in
point.
Those
They were heavily
where
available.
Baba Yaga was not picked because I have a feeling it has something more to do with that than anything else. But Baba Yaga also, I think, has a great follow-up. Like, that's what we were talking about for this Odin cage. You want that AoE damage that's going to feel impactful when you actually have your opponents trapped inside of it. Shards of Ice can't do it all alone, especially not if it's Vrongyu on the Emir, because it's just not going to be as much damage flat out. But with the Baba Yaga now, that home sweet home, a lot of territory that's going to be covered. The Kabrakan have to assume that this is for Fine in the solo lane. Should be an interesting matchup, walls versus walls here. But Jade Dragons, they've only got one to operate with, so the Hoom bots can kind of close the gap here in terms of that crowd control that we were kind of asking for from the Dragons comp.
And definitely an interesting draft. I feel like, I don't know how many weeks ago it was now, but there was a pretty wide discussion on whether or not
it's like pretty safe too.
Right. I think it stacks pretty well.
Yeah, it's
you get those items online pretty early. You
a lot of
Warlocks
AoE.
into Charons, and that
It's hard
feels
to
good.
react to.
Man, so it's not a bad pick at all, is it?
No, it's actually a good pick for the Leviathans, I would say. And Shinto is going with a very similar playstyle to that Warlock staff Tiamat. Let's just get to the late game and really turn the Jets on there. What I want to see is the ability for the Jade Dragons. We talked in game 1 about how they looked a lot like themselves in phase 1, where it was
No peel. Is that really a level of concern that the Dragons have to be worried about?
I'm not as worried as the desk is about that. I mean, you've got ways to make it happen, and plus the Leviathan's composition is going to be going at you a lot of the time anyways. Fine, it has to blink out, but he should just get caged here.
That is not what I want to see when I'm rounding the corner, is everyone from the Leviathans coming in to close that gap.
Oh!
Fear no evil from Sam for Soccer makes things interesting, and Sam follows it up and ends up getting a kill here as well. First blood to the Leviathans, but the Jade Dragons get the next 2.
Really good rotation from the Jade Dragons. Look, Final K didn't want to see that, but he saw what he saw, and he understood the position that he was then in. Gets off all of his damage, which is all you can ask from him in that moment. He gets off all the damage, buys a ton of time for Sam and for Hurry and for Mike to get in range. And even though it's first blood for the Leviathans, 2 for 1, I like the Jade Dragons coming out of that count for 2 autos. You shave an auto off of that time to kill, and it's not so bad. Baba Yaga actually does struggle a bit against Kabrakan. I like this matchup for the Kabrakan. It's a pick that oftentimes gets overlooked in terms of counter matchups.
Wow.
But I like it.
Look at this early Gold Fury pulled by the Jade Dragons. Mike uses his ultimate and the course. Wrong use close by. Zapman, hey, we talked about the steal potential from this game. Can Zapman strike gold early on? No, he can. The Jade Dragons secure their own Fury. Might even get a kill on Wrong you as well. It's best case scenario for the Dragons. They get Fury and a kill onto the Leviathan support.
Couldn't have gone any better. Good patience from the Dragons in that moment. I mean, Zapman snipes are coming down. They know they don't have the best secure. I mean, Izanami ultimate should be able to do it, but why worry?
A Gold Fury early in this game, and we're going to buy ourselves 2,000 gold of a lead in under 10 minutes of game time. And then we're going to rotate on over what could be a Pyromancer pull. And it's more likely, especially if you get a kill on a Yarkor here. Fear No Evil sets up for a kill. And that's Hurrywin picking it up. Final K rounds the backside, gets the stun onto Wrongu, but Panatom has now been left alone trying to deal some damage to Sam for Soccer, but the leap away is enough.
Really good disarm there from Mike. Not often the part of the Fafnir kit that you're utilizing super heavily, but underhand tactics in dwarf form is a disarm, and he forced Panatom's beads. That would have been a long duration where Panatom couldn't have done any significant damage in that Kingslayer. Hard to notice sometimes what the sports are able to do, but makes a big play there for the Jade Dragons as they get another objective off the back end.
And he was, not that it matters, but well-timed that Mike still had the group coerce there to get the Pyromancer taken down. Hurrywin receiving a little bit of damage from Wrongu and Shinto. The Shards of Ice won't be enough from Wrongu here. Sam for Soccer close by, halfway to the Fear No Evil, so likely nothing else there in the mid lane. So now the Leviathans aggro, wondering what their route, not back into the game, it's not that drastic just yet, but back into the early game is, because the Jade Dragons have effectively been, oh my goodness, controlling everything.
It's all right. We talk for a living. It's totally.
Both of us.
No one is gonna notice. What? Not me.
Dave, don't throw me in.
You apologized not 5 minutes ago.
No, I did not.
All right. I'm not being dragged.
If they win both of those, you can't. You know, you're not necessarily going to be there for all the team fights. You have to make your choices, especially when you're this far behind. And that's what good teams do, is they take these fights where it's like, yeah, you can take it, but you're unfavored. And if you don't take it, then we still get the reward, and it's like we took it anyways.
That was quick reaction time from Zapman, but wasn't quick enough. Sam for Soccer uses the Fear No Evil, but Zapman immediately on both actives. Watch out, though. Final K's got his ult. Up to the sky goes Zapman. Immediately cancels it, rolls on out, and it looks like Zap will survive, but he had to use everything to stay in that fight.
Really, really close. Wanted Sam to be a little bit more patient on that Sacred Monkey toss. No reason not just to wait for the hammer. But either way, you get what you came for. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Is that a team fight? No. But in the how many team fights do we have before this game gets out of hand counter, it certainly counts for that. Right. You know, if you want to count it as more of a doomsday clock. The Leviathans do a good job of spreading the map. They
Tough spot for Panatom. One level down, so at least XP isn't that far out of control. Yarkor has done a good job. While all the skirmishing was happening on left, Yarkor pushed down the right wave, so that's gotten him one level advantage over Fine. Okay, Pyromancer started by the Leviathans this time. They're being a little bit more proactive. Now Mike jumps in, transforms, as an Odin Cage in the back line has left Yarkor alone with Panda Cat, but there's the coerce and there's the damage. Now the Odin forced to leave. Up into the sky goes Zapman, trying to save his life just for a little bit longer. Shinto's in the ultimate as well. And look at the wave of the Dragons push forward. They have only been able to find one, but the damage just around the corner.
Wrongu's gonna fall, and so will Shinto. Double kill for Sam for Soccer. And it's only Panatom and Yarkor left. The Leviathans got Hurrywin, but I don't think that's going to be enough to deter the Jade Dragons from heading towards the Fire Giant.
Wow, this is a 16-minute Fire Giant. And Polar Bear Mike is going to assist with the coerce on the Panda Cat. Yarkor close by as well. Fine, okay. With all those stuns and more, it's just going to delay the Leviathan solo laner from getting in there. There is a delay, 10 seconds on Hurrywin. If the Dragons really want to roll the dice here, they can wait for their mid laner to come back. They won't do so. Instead, let's just confirm the objective and confirm the Pyromancer in aggro. We are not even 17 minutes into the game, and I don't think it's overextending to say we're starting to spiral a bit here.
Definitely. And look, Hurrywin dies in that fight. He's the only one for the Jade Dragons. Sometimes we talk about good deaths. This would not be one for Panda Cat, as he's been caught in the mid lane, greeting for a mid wave. And that is a massive play for the Leviathans. Like, so big that if they come back to win this game, that's going to be the first play that I think of, because he really earned that Fire Giant for the Dragons. And that's the type of player Hurry is. That's why I think he really fits well on gods like Tiamat, who are willing to be a bit more aggressive and jump in, and I think Morgan Le Fay can fit that same sort of play style for him.
Well, Panda Cat is back on the map, shy one FG buff. But this is a great opportunity for the Jade Dragons to effectively seal this game. They're going to transform with Mike. Can use the coerce while the Phoenix siege begins. This is an early Phoenix. Frenzy and coerce on everyone. And look at the Phoenix melt away. Yarkor jumps into the back line. Will he survive any longer? Fino K's got something to say about it, and so does Panda Cat, who's hit a massive ultimate in the back as well. Look at Shinto, though, pouring the damage into the front line of the Jade Dragons, and that's got to kill.
Oh, good damage from Hurry, though, with that Sigil Mastery, looking for Shinto, who
They still
uses
get it,
knockback immunity nicely, but this left side Phoenix is toast.
Wow, Sanford Soccer's just going to split things out here, maybe even get the kill. He forces Diegas, which might be just as good because the left side Phoenix falls aggro not 20 minutes into game number 3 here. The Jade Dragons.
If I'm Kabam, their coach, those I live with. You know, that's fine by me.
Right.
It's
They're making decisions, right?
Right. It's the ones where they lose that confidence and they lose that ability to just go, no, we want this and we're going to take it now. And there's not a whole lot that you can do about it. And that's what I think has led to some of those struggles we've seen.
They're going to do it again?
Yeah, because
they don't even,
it's the same situation.
FG buff.
Same situation.
They don't even have FG buff, but they're going to
Doesn't
coerce. They're going to use Frenzy maybe on the back end here. The wall from Wrong You buys a little bit of time. And that's going to force the Jade Dragons to think twice about sieging up this Phoenix, but the mindset was the same, FG buff or not.
Sure, and those are the ones you live with, you know? Is that the right call in that moment? Doesn't seem to be the case, but we gave it a shot, and maybe we can punish someone for it. Shinto nearly lost his beads. Mike ends up being off the mark on the hammer. But I love that. That is my favorite type of mentality for the Jade Dragons. Just, this is what we're doing. Doesn't matter what you say about it.
Leviathans now have to step up, don't they? Where, or maybe they don't want to, but
Not go in this game. And the more I've thought about it, the more I like that they didn't go a Phantom. Because you've got Izanami, who shreds down the Odin cage, and you've got a Fafnir when he transforms, will insta-kill all the Odin cages as well. So you don't need to respect that ultimate whatsoever. I think the Leviathans may have taken the bait from the Jade Dragons in the drafting phase.
look at this. This time, the Jade Dragons don't even have to use the transformation, the coerce, or the frenzy. And quietly, the FG will roar down.
Quiet roar sounds like a Halo map. You know, they always have these really gaudy names.
Yeah, I expect compensation if that's used.
Right, okay, yeah. Well, Infinite's coming out soon.
There you go. And so, you know what else is coming out soon is the transformation, the coerce, and probably the frenzy here from PBM. Draugr buff is there. Wrong You has used more walls to stop auto attacks from reaching their base than maybe I've seen blocking off the Jade Dragons here in game number 3. PBM pops the frenzy, pops the coerce. Zapman left alone in the back, but he's able to re-engage Yarkor. He's not, though. Some snipes might find their way onto Sanford Soccer, and they do. Shinto has poured out a lot of damage in this fight, and the Leviathans have been able to answer that call. 2 down for the Dragons, and the right side Phoenix stands.
But look at this left side Phoenix. This is a good call from the Dragons. You have to stay here and keep the Leviathans busy. You know that Panatom's going to have to go over, and he will save this left side Phoenix just barely in time. A little surprised they didn't go in a little bit harder, but no one could put any damage on a Shinto in that fight. Zap to free cast. Surprised the Dragons are playing into that dichotomy a little bit. I'd like to see them.
This game is far from over if the Leviathans have anything to say about it. The Odin cage, you know, Yarkor dies, but it's kind of that corralling of the Dragons where then Shinto can just kind of fire those fire bolts out that seems to have been paying off here. So Oni Fury gets taken. Some value in that for the Leviathans now because the waves pushing in are going to be slowed down a little bit. Got a minute and 50 seconds, nearly 2 minutes left on the FG buff. You got it on a few important members of your team. Maybe there's still some value here, especially if you get a kill onto Wrong You, and it's big. Free pickings here for Hurrywin. Now a chance to re-engage. Again,
love it.
Minute and 30 seconds left on the FG.
Love it. Don't worry about the wave. It's going to take forever to get there. It doesn't matter. We'll get it later. This Phoenix is so low. Just walk up, kill it. Don't have to worry about Wrong You's walls, which, as you pointed out, have been instrumental in keeping the Dragons off these Phoenixes.
So 5v4. How do the Dragons want to play the rest of this? Not overextending is number one. So you can regroup. The right side Phoenix still low. Now instead it's a transformation for Mike. Frenzy is there. The game plan can just be run back now by the Jade Dragons. You got to watch out for Shinto in this fight. Need to find a way to get onto the Baba Yaga, but there's no dive from the Dragons, so there's no pushback yet from the Leviathans. In the mid lane, Phoenix goes quietly as well.
I think at that point, I don't know. That's such a tough call because Panatom, no way Panatom wants to be anywhere near this fight if he doesn't have his ult. I wonder if I'm the Dragons, I'd be discussing whether or not we can hold it until 30 minutes to get EFG,
fast.
but they will not. They won't play with fire. They'll just kill it.
Surprised you don't see Zapman send some snipes the FG's way?
No, he needs it on these Phoenix defenses because he's not getting damage off any other way. He's getting dove so hard by Fine-OK. If they know that Rom snipes are down, he's dead to the Kabrakan alone. basically. It's really hard to peel that character whenever he has Magi's with this type of composition from Leviathans.
So Zatman at least has that opportunity now. As the minions, fire minions, push in the mid wave. Fire minions a little bit out on the left side, but they're going to catch up here eventually. Left side Phoenix will respawn as well. So not all is lost yet for the Leviathans. They have some time on their side, and they have that Draugr buff we've talked about. Maybe buys you another auto attack or two. With Final K being as strong as he is, no surprise we see the Cabrakan just push out on that mid wave. You imagine here, Aggro, what's worked for the Leviathans has been Cage, and hope that Shinto can funnel some damage into whoever's trapped in there, and you might have to see more of the same. We'll see how the Leviathans respond now. Go button has been pressed. Final K wall into the back line, and then a stun. Hasn't quite found what the Dragons are looking for. Did buy space, hasn't bought the Phoenix yet.
Yeah, but you got Shinto's ultimate, and that's the biggest
that's
get
massive.
in that moment. You didn't get any relics on their side, so this isn't a free fight, but look at that fire wave on left.
Ooh, Hurrywin's taking some big damage. Is that enough to give the Leviathans a win in this fight? It's a double stun inside of the cape. Zatman's found the snipes onto Sam for Soccer, and the first kill to the Leviathans. Immediately answered back, though, as Final K has picked up the kill onto the Leviathans jungler.
And Panda Cat still healthy, still has both relics. Mid Phoenix is already respawned and then fallen again. Not looking good. Someone's got to answer that Titan wave.
Uh-oh, right side Phoenix walled off here by Rongyr. You tell me Winions are
Hello?
going to a game where we don't have a Tiamat? Leviathans turn around, finally back towards the Titan, but at this point the Jade Dragons walk in. They auto-attack it a couple of times, and we are going on towards the end here. Wall off from Final K onto Zatman, and the Winions get it done in a game, the only game without a Tiamat. Well played from the Dragons. Felt like we were trending in that direction for a long time.
Specifically between Mike, Sam, and Fino, okay? I think that those three just really got the most of their benefit off of the toggling of like the Fear No Evil applications, and then Mike would try to go in after the fact. You know, it didn't matter who was initiating. You just know for a fact that one of the other three was going to be filling the void after the fact.
Making sure they kept things a little more interesting. They had the Izanami, the Morgan Le Fay on their team, and maybe prominent, but like you said, kind of sweating towards the end. This Phoenix Siege was a brave one from the Dragons, but they did that multiple times, sometimes without an FG.
That clip, though, is probably one of the favorite reasons I could ever think of to describe why Morgan Le Fay is as good as she is, because having an Odin go in and then instantaneously be knocked up, Yakor having to eat so much damage in the process, that's what made it so complicated for the Leviathans, though, because their primary initiators, between that Odin and Amir, never really had an opportunity to flourish. They were constantly being met with crowd control, and it's just a lot to try and handle, and especially when you have to worry about being free casted on in the back line immediately after.
I'll admit I was a little trepidatious when I saw Cabrakan locked in, but Final K did exactly what Final K needed to. 2-2 and 8 is majorly set up here. Same thing, PBM 1-1 and 9. And Panda Cat, I'm pretty sure pumped out a ton of damage, but you can see Hurry and Sam, the ones who were picking up a lot of the kills. Yeah, the Panda Cat down there. Top damage on his team, not quite in the game. Shinto, 24,000, but it didn't translate to as much. I'm sure raising the stakes a little bit. Not so much for the Dragons. They're going to be playing the Valkyries a little bit later on, although there's going to be a little bit of a threat. But the Bolts are fighting up there. Kings, depending on another loss, all of a sudden are tied for second. There's a lot to happen.
Tension certainly going to start rising here, Gore, as we approach that Phase 2 playoffs period. And Jade Dragons, they might be in third for right now, but I'm sure they're not satisfied with it. Camelot Kings, second place position, not looking all that cozy right now for the Camelot Kings. They're going to have a really tough set coming up soon here, too, up against the Bolts. So could be a really impactful one in terms of where the Jade Dragons line up and all of that.
Their spot is in jeopardy. Another spot that I'd say is in jeopardy, you wouldn't guess it, 3-5 for the Titans, 1-7 for the Scarabs. The Scarabs are playing the Titans tomorrow. If they win that and manage to start turning a lot of these sets around, depending on how the Titans changes go and how the Scarabs changes continue to go, it could change things a lot. Though again, if you're looking at those bottom spots, that's where your eyes got to be for people shifting in and out of playoff contention, whereas up at the top, it's all seeding. In fact, the Scarabs and Titans are playing tomorrow. You had mentioned the Bolts and the Kings.